And welcome back to our continuing coverage of the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy here on RFL. Andrew Whitman along with Meghan Vega.
We thank you so much for sticking with us as we try to bring you so many of these stories from this superstorm Sandy. One of our reporters, Natalie Patterson, had been covering the hurricane from the very beginning, reporting from the Jersey Shore. Tonight, she continues her reports, joining us once again from Rumson. Natalie, quite a different shoreline that many of us are seeing for the first time.
Absolutely. You know, a lot of people in Seabright haven't been able to see their homes or their businesses for quite some time now. Remember, they had a mandatory evacuation for Sunday at 4 p.m. At 10 after 4, I remember the siren went off and people had to get out. And now it's Thursday and they still haven't been able to get back. And you know what? It's going to be 7 to 10 days more before they can go home. I just want real quick for you guys to take a look behind me and just see how powerful this storm really was. This piece of balcony or piece of deck that you see right behind me, that most likely came from Seabright. What happened during Hurricane Sandy is that storm surge swept the ocean right over the seawall in Seabright, right into the town. It took out beach clubs. Several beach clubs are completely destroyed in Seabright. The beach clubs, then that water moved through there across Ocean Avenue and started damaging the homes. I want you to take a look at one of the homes. I hope that we can still see it. It's getting dark very quickly here. One of these homes was actually picked up off its foundation and moved closer to the river because of that storm surge. But the mayor this afternoon told us that a little bit further south, a little bit further north, about a mile north in Seabright, what happened was these beach clubs were so big, they actually ended up protecting some of the homes here in Seabright. But a lot of damage to be done. We can still see the lights of work crews across the river. They are trying to clear the debris as fast as they can. The major problem right now is there are gas leaks, so a major threat of an explosion. That's why they're not letting anybody in. It's so unsafe. And so a lot of people are exhausted and frustrated and sad. We spoke to some of them who live on Seabright this afternoon. Take a listen.
I think I'm okay mentally. Physically, I'm exhausted.
I've been crying for days and days and days.
It's really horrible. Nothing has ever happened like this before.
I woke up and it was like nothing was real. Everything that I know was like backwards and upside down. It's all still there, but it's all over the place.
And I heard you guys talking about the rising death toll from Hurricane Sandy, and I wanted to offer some good news for the folks in Monmouth County who might be watching this. Rescue crews are still going house to house checking for any fatalities due to this storm, and so far they have not found any. So at least some good news tonight.
Natalie, that's very good news to hear tonight. Monmouth County, one of the hardest hit areas in New Jersey. Thank you so much. We'll be checking back with you throughout the night.
All right, from New Jersey, we want to shift over to Long Island. We're joined on the phone now by Ed Mangano. He is the county executive of Nassau County. That is the westernmost county on Long Island. Mr. County Executive, thanks for a few minutes.
Yes.
How is Nassau County? What are the areas of greatest concern tonight?
Well, all of our shoreline and the low-lying areas on the North Shore are of concern. Many residents suffering from not only power outages, but significant water damage to their homes, wind damage to their homes, significant debris on their homes. I visited a house today that had 9 boats washed up onto the house, roads completely closed by boats piled up. We still have, that type of significant debris on property. The emergency management workers and certainly the Department of Public Works have performed excellent on clearing the roadways of debris so they're travelable, but there's still a lot to be addressed, certainly with people's homes.
Do you still have residents in fragile areas of the county, people whose lives may be in jeopardy if conditions or if access isn't improved?
Look, during this time we're very concerned with the public health, especially when you have people sheltering in place without electricity. And that's exasperated in places like Long Beach, where the septic system's not up yet, and there's not sufficient potable water. The water's under do not consume water. So these are concerns that our Commissioner of Health monitors each day so that we can get information out to our residents. So yes, we are very concerned.
Can you get those people assistance? Can you get them emergency attention if needed?
Yes, we can assist all of our residents that are sheltering in place. If they choose not to shelter there, we have options for our residents. And again, many residents just choose not to leave their homes, and I understand that. but at the same time we have concern, especially with the weather changing and getting colder.
Mr. Mangano, this is Meghan Vega, and I do have a question that concerns that dropping temperature. Everyone knows that crews are out there working 16 to 24-hour shifts. Everyone knows that everyone is just exhausted from this. You have to be keeping spirits high, but also making promises to bring the power back. Can you talk to us a little bit about the efforts and the progress that has been made so far, and really the prognosis, or can you give us an idea of how long this is going to take for recovery?
Really, LIPA would have to speak to the power issue, the extended hours. What we are doing is planning for extended outages and moving generators and those type of resources into critical infrastructure. We have, for example, several hospitals are running on generators. If they're not going to get their power back, we're going to need to have some backup generators should the primary generators fail. That type of analysis and work is being done now with our critical management teams, and I'm very proud that Governor Cuomo has sent some of his most talented experts here to work with our teams and work with FEMA and planners so we can stay ahead and plan for the what-ifs, while at the same time dealing with the restoration and the recovery efforts and the assessment efforts that are ongoing. So there's many moving parts running at the same time on many critical issues. And again, our primary concern, life safety, and then critical infrastructure. And we're pretty much in those stages right now, beginning to move into other areas where we can provide greater assistance to those that have been sheltering in place since the storm.
Mr. Mangano, we heard from several of our reporters, particularly in the Long Beach area yesterday, who reported that residents were concerned, and one of the reasons why they hadn't evacuated, they were concerned about looting or risks to their property in their absence. Have you heard any indication of any looting in the county, and is the county taking steps to try to prevent that?
We have put out from the very beginning a very stern warning to looters. We are patrolling these areas with marked, unmarked cars, electronic surveillance, the National Guard, and the New York State Police resources. So it's a stern warning. If you even think or choose to try to loot, we're going to get you and lock you up.
Do you have any reports of any looting in the county as of right now?
We do not have any reports of any unusual pockets of looting, no, not brought to my attention.
How do you keep the spirits up? I mean, you're out there, you're meeting with residents who have literally lost everything. What do you say to someone whose home has been washed away, whose memories are gone, whose livelihood may have been lost?
Well, clearly, it's a very emotional time. I've met with many residents in tears, the emotion there with the loss of their most cherished possessions. Family pictures and mementos far exceeding the material items that can be replaced. It is heartbreaking. But at the same time, I can't thank our residents enough, and I am so proud of the residents of Nassau County, because to be out there in the devastated areas, the critical areas, neighbors helping neighbors, people's spirits up on the outlook of recovery, and making the best out of a tragic situation. It is just heartwarming from that perspective to see so many people helping each other.
Ed Mangano, County Executive, thank you so much for joining us. From heartbreaking to heartwarming. Thank you.
All right, for the Chief Executive of Nassau County, the Chief Executive of New York State, Governor Andrew Cuomo speaking now.
On a regular schedule tomorrow morning. The Harlem line reopens tonight with full service from Grand Central to Southeast. On the subways, the 7 line will reopen at midnight tonight between Main Street and 74th Street. The M line is reopening tonight with limited service from Jamaica, Queens to Midtown Manhattan. The East River tunnels that carry the 4, 5, and F trains are now free of water. The tracks are dry. The signal testing has been completed. Service can be restored within 2 hours of restoration of power by Con Ed. I've spoken today with Con Ed CEO Kevin Burke about the urgency of restoring power to these lines, which would permit significant restoration of the system. You can see the interconnection between the restoration of power and the restoration of the lines. One is now linked to the other. Also, one tube of the Holland Tunnel will be open tomorrow morning for buses only. Buses only, one tube of the Holland Tunnel. So leave the car at home and take the bus. That is our message over and over and over again. Help yourself and help the city with the traffic and the gridlock. On the power update, there are a number of utility companies that are involved in providing power throughout the affected areas. You have Con Edison, you have LIPA, et cetera. You have a number of others. I believe most companies are working very, very hard to restore the power and are deploying their workers and doing it very well. I believe that. I've had a number of conversations with the companies themselves, and we've gone through schedules, and I believe they're working very hard. I also believe that I want them to understand how important a function this is. This is not just restoration of power, which is important at any time. This is a restoration of power after a storm when families are really living in hardship. The state regulates the public utilities. The state certifies the public utilities. Their performance in this operation, I believe, is germane to their regulatory status. If the state believes they were not diligent and aggressive in their activities to restore power, they could be subject to monetary penalties. They could even lose their certification. I have communicated this orally to most, and we are also releasing a letter that I sent them today. I believe, as I said, most of the companies are working very hard and trying their best. But this is not just about effort and good faith effort. This is about getting the job done because a lot of New Yorkers are relying on them. If they want to be a utility in the state, if they want consumers to pay the bill, if they want to be licensed by the state, certified by the state, they have to perform, and we want performance, and it's very important. Next point, given the storm, certain products and services are in short supply. We've been talking about the gasoline shortage, but it's not just gasoline because transportation has been difficult. Transportation services are in short supply. That could create conditions of price gouging. I've spoken to Attorney General Eric Schneiderman. I asked him to monitor the situation for price gouging, gasoline, transportation systems, other consumer products, and the Attorney General has agreed. So to all the vendors, to all the businesses, 99.9% of whom have been helpful and cooperative in this time of need for New Yorkers, do not try to gouge New Yorkers. And don't try to take advantage of New Yorkers because of the difficulty of the situation. Price gouging, there are price gouging laws on the books. The Attorney General is investigating and will enforce them. Next phase of reconstruction, once we stabilize the situation, which is happening rapidly, the next phase of reconstruction will be reconstructing small businesses and homes. There'll be three potential sources of funding for small business restoration or home restoration. The first is going to be private insurance for people who had private insurance on their home, flood insurance, fire insurance, general home ownership policy. The second will be a potential of federal funds through the FEMA agency. The third potential source could be funding from the state through one of the state's housing programs. So there'll be three potential avenues to pursue. This can get very complicated very quickly. This can generate a lot of bureaucracy very quickly. You have New Yorkers who are in a difficult situation. The last thing we now want to do is subject them to some labyrinth of bureaucracy and forms and paper. What we're going to do is put together expert teams from the state government who are well briefed in private insurance, the federal programs from federal officials, and the state's homeownership programs. We will start tomorrow morning a 1-800 line, numbers 1-855-NYS-SANDY, 1-855-NYS-SANDY, New York State Sandy. It's an 855 number, but it's a toll-free number. If you call that number tomorrow, you will get an expert on the phone who can talk to you about the, you can explain your situation, they can give you advice, they can point you in the right direction, and they can start you on the road to applying for the proper funds, or applying to your own insurance company and being your advocate vis-a-vis your insurance company. Next week, next Monday, we will make these teams mobile and send them to your community, and we'll have a schedule of community visits, so the government people will actually come to you rather than you trying to find them. We'll start this 1-800 number tomorrow just as an interim measure. Next week we'll have a full schedule of when they're going to be in a community near you. The FEMA funding, even if you don't have private insurance, the FEMA funding can be helpful. We have with us today the superintendent of the Department of Financial Services, Ben Lawsky, who can be helpful as an advocate vis-a-vis your insurance company, so we actually think we can make a difference here. Last point is this: we talk of systems. We've been talking about systems a lot. We talk about the train system, we talk about the water system, we talk about the power system, and that's very important that we get those systems up and running. But at the end of the day, New York is not a collection of systems. New York is a community of people. And right now we are a community of people that needs to support one another and needs help and needs comfort and needs assistance, because you have a lot of people who are in a undergoing very difficult circumstances. And I have one simple suggestion that I would ask all New Yorkers, which is just check on your neighbor. Check on your neighbor to your left, check on your neighbor to your right, and make sure your neighbor doesn't need any help. If you know there's a person down the hall, a senior citizen down the hall, if you know there's a family who might need help down the hall, walk down the hall, knock on the door, and say, is there anything I can do? You know, you have people who have been in high-rise buildings that have not had power for a number of days. They haven't had water. Many people can't walk down from a high floor, can't walk down from the 20th floor to go to the supermarket. Let's help one another. It's what's always made us special. That's what makes the community of New York special. And this is the time to do it. This is the time to take that little extra step. And New Yorkers feel that innately. But now is the time to do that. We have 1 million meals that have come to us from the federal government that are being distributed by our National Guard. You'll see them on the streets. Let's just make sure people who need that help are getting that help. And there's no way better to do it than just having the community of New York help itself. With that, I will turn it over to Joe Loder for any further details.
Okay. Thank you, Governor. I will be very brief. The Governor outlined all of the additional services that we added some today. We'll be adding more tomorrow. It's our goal to continue to add every day so that we can get back to a full and complete system. If you go online to mta.info, you'll see the full service alert, what's available on the subway system. We also have these alerts available with the full track schedules for both Metro North and the Long Island Railroad. One thing I would like to say, talking about the community of people, I want to thank the transit workers, the bus drivers, the railroad workers, the bridge and tunnel workers for what they've been doing over the last couple of days. They've left home, were here during the storm, and have been working diligently on behalf of the people of New York to get our system up and running. And I can't thank them enough. It's been a great effort on their part, and we'll continue that effort. Thank you.
Any questions?
follow up on the power situation or lack of power. What has been the impact and where of the power situation and in terms of the restoration of service?
You know, Carl, everybody's making progress everywhere. Long Island probably had the greatest problem by percentage. Close to 90% of the homes on Long Island were without power. Westchester was probably the best by percentage, or had the least problem, let's say, by percentage. Con Ed was somewhere in the middle. So they are all making progress steadily. You see lights going on, and the progress has been good. My point is, it doesn't give someone a lot of comfort to say progress has been good. You know, this is a binary question for people. I have power or I don't have power, and it's not all that relevant that the rate of progress is good if my lights are off and I can't use my refrigerator. So that's the point. The utility companies are talking about rates of progress, and I'm talking about helping people and getting lights on for people. I believe most of the companies are doing everything they can do. I believe that. But I want to make sure that they are. And the state is a regulatory body. You know, we don't do business with a utility company on a handshake. There are rules and regulations, and they have to live up to them. They have a license from the state that allows them to make money, right, at the end of the day. They want that franchise. They have to perform. And this is going to be a test of their performance. And I want them to know that. And I think they do now.
Can you elaborate on the situation, particularly with business?
And you've been watching a live press conference from New York Governor Andrew Cuomo reporting about power and transit and how the two are so interrelated. If you remember last night, the governor actually talked about a transportation emergency. And really the goal here is to get New York up and running, number one, with that transportation system, and seeing how integral the power really is. And there are reports that, you know, Con Ed is working to get a vast majority back by this weekend. The
governor with a couple of updates for us. Just under 1.5 million New Yorkers still remain in the dark tonight, though he basically threatened utility companies with financial penalties if they fail to perform. He also put businesses under watch, saying that Attorney General Eric Schneiderman would be on the hunt for any price gouging. A couple of transit updates. The 7 line. The subway line will be open from Flushing in Main Street to 74th Street in Queens. That'll be up tonight. And the M line will be up and running later today from Jamaica Center to Penn Station in Manhattan. So at least one line crossing the East River. And the Holland Tunnel will open tomorrow, but only for bus traffic, as again, the New York City high occupancy vehicle restriction continues, and they try to encourage everybody into mass transit as best they can.
So many people trying to get back to work, trying to get back to their lives. We're learning that certain people in Manhattan are allowed to go into their apartments to kind of retrieve their things, but cannot stay in their apartments, cannot stay in their homes. So this transportation emergency continues, but at least we're making those forward-moving steps. And again, the governor talking about how power is so important and how long it's going to take to get that transit system back online. But again, some good news.
And one final note from the governor that I think bears repeating, which is check on your neighbors. He encouraged New Yorkers, you know, the people who live next to you, the people who live upstairs and down, everybody in this together, he reminded us. And a solid reminder for everybody, no matter where you happen to live, if there's anybody anywhere near you who you can check on who may be in need of assistance, please do. And that message from Governor Cuomo or from really any other concern.
I think that's just the message.
Yeah.
Just check on each other, take care of each other. If you have power, invite your neighbors over for a warm cup of coffee and let them dry out a little bit and warm up, because as we've been hearing, these temperatures are dropping. It's really getting cold out there. Gas is so hard to come by for your cars, for your generators. So many of us have those generators, but can't run them, so we're being forced to shut them off for hours on end and then bring them back online. But this is when you really have to take care of one another.
A number of people experiencing those very kinds of difficulties in Lindenhurst on Long Island. FiOS 1's Carolyn Fortino has been reporting there. She joins us live with the very latest. Carolyn, what can you tell us?
That's right, guys. We are joining you from Bayview Avenue here in Lindenhurst. And just to give you an idea of how close these houses rest to the water, I'm actually standing on what used to be the dock here. I'm about less than 10 feet from the water's edge. And as you can see, during the storm, this dock was completely blown away. This actually used to be 6 steps. 3 of them are completely buried under the sand. But what I want to show you guys over here is a little bit more of the devastation that you're seeing with the homes. This home behind me was completely shifted off of its foundation. You can see at the bottom there are cinder blocks where the house used to rest, but the entire backside of the home is just completely blown away. And all of the belongings are destroyed, and it's just completely devastating. There is just no back of this house left here anymore. And we actually caught up with the woman who owns the house, and even though this damage took place days ago, she is still completely beside herself and just can't believe what has happened.
The waves and everything else were just so high, and there was a garage in front of my neighbor's house over there, and it's down the block. The roof is one place and the rest of the garage, and it's just, I can't even fathom the thought that refrigerators, you know, just boats just went down, cars, the other boats are on top of each other. One boat parked itself. It was so weird, in between a house and something else. And it's like, if you don't see it, you just...
I believe it.
If somebody told me, I would be like, I can't believe it. And it happened to us.
Now, all day long, we've seen Joni and other residents coming back to their property, picking through their belongings just to salvage whatever they can to try and piece their lives back together. Earlier today, we also saw some rescue crews from the town of Lindenhurst. They've been coming down here with pickup trucks, trying to move as much of the debris as they can and help people in any way that they can and sort of putting their lives back together. But that's the latest from Lindenhurst. I'm Carolyn Fortino. Back over to you guys in the studio.
Caroline, that kind of shock that we're getting from homeowners who are coming back and surveying the area is certainly understandable. Do people, to your knowledge, do you get the sense when they're coming back, do they know what to do, or is it just, are they not even at that stage? Is it just sort of reacting to it?
I think people are just shell-shocked at this point. I mean, this home especially, this is a perfect example. You have a house that's lifted off of its foundation. There's the walls have been completely taken away, and people, the problem is that they don't know what to do. They don't know what is the first step, how they should even, you know, begin the process of putting their lives back together. It's, you know, it's just, it's heartbreaking that, you know, you come back to look at your house and this is what you're faced with. And I think that it's just very overwhelming. It's very overwhelming and it's heartbreaking. And they're not really sure what the first step even is. But I guess the first thing that you can do is just try and salvage whatever belongings and memories you can, and that's what people have been doing here.
That same story playing out thousands and thousands and thousands of times. Carolyn Fortino, live for us tonight in Lindenhurst, Long Island. Thanks very much.
All right, well, from Long Island, let's head over back to New Jersey and go to Union Beach, where Kimberly Wallace is standing by.
Thanks. While many people are still in disbelief, the devastation from Hurricane Sandy is now starting to come into focus. Many people here in Union Beach are just getting back to their homes, and what they're finding, well, this chilling video says it all.
This was a 2-story house. The bottom story has collapsed. The second story is that way out there in the middle of the meadows. That's the second story to this house.
This pile of debris was once several people's homes. Now it's destruction.
You lost your home, everything, your whole life, sentimental stuff. And you just try and do what you got to do. But, you know.
Try and make it through day by day.
Yeah, if we can.
John Licari is not only dealing with the loss of all of his belongings, he's also desperately trying to get news that his daughter is safe.
My daughter in Brooklyn, Noel and Tony and the kids.
Have you been able to talk to them?
No, we're trying to get through on a cell phone.
And when was the last time you talked to them?
Maybe Sunday.
Do you know how they're doing?
Have no clue. No clue. We're trying to call them.
Many heartbreaking stories out there. FEMA is on its way to town to help with the cleanup and rebuilding efforts. 1,000 meals have been donated and are being distributed to displaced residents. Emergency personnel from other states and other areas of New Jersey are in town helping with the relief efforts. That's the latest from Union Beach. Kimberly Wallace, FiOS 1 News. Back to you at the desk.
All right, Kimberly, thank you. Such devastation. It doesn't even seem real when you're looking at some of these pictures.
We've seen so many photos now from Sandy since Monday night, and they still, like, you see them for the first time and they still shock you. The house that was, half of it was ripped away and part of it was, the other house that she was showing us where the top level looked to be
sheared
several blocks away, and you could still see it from, you were saying during the piece, it looks like a tornado hit the area. I mean, it's all of our worst natural disaster fears seemingly mixed together.
And it was that wind. I think it was so powerful. It was so scary, and it's done such damage. You see what force that brought on, and we were forecasting that, and our meteorology department was forecasting that, but you never believe or want to believe. You know, you don't just understand the force of what a 90-mile-per-hour wind can really do, and we're just seeing these unbelievable images coming in. And as you know, Ed Mangano from Nassau County says, it goes from heartbreaking to heartwarming as we all tried to come together as a regional community and support each other in this recovery.
And speaking of Long Island, most of the pictures that we've been seeing out of Long Beach have been of the heartbreaking variety as opposed to the heartwarming variety. 5's Jody Goldberg has been reporting from Long Beach all day, and I wonder which we're going to see. I hope for the heartwarming, but I expect the heartbreaking.
No matter which way you look, the devastation is catastrophic. With cleanup crews just starting to get underway, it's a step in the right direction for thousands of residents whose homes got hit the hardest.
I'm a beach girl my whole life. I love it here more than anything. And we can't live here. We have nowhere to go.
Kimberly Carcone is one of the hundreds of Long Beach residents who are out in the cold. This bag of clothing is all she was able to salvage after Hurricane Sandy swept through the city. The clock tower stopped just before 7 o'clock Monday night, and that was when the city stood still. The sun rose today to lighten up the darkness, but the reality is painful. People are still without power.
It's Mother Nature. You can't control it.
It was just too much. I mean, I'm devastated myself.
Disaster. That's about all I can say.
We need power. That's what we need right now.
Frustrated residents waited on hour-long lines outside of stores with power to plug in. But as dark days go by, residents like John Duffy, who tried unsuccessfully to use this payphone, are getting angry and hungry.
All we know is our little world, and it's got really small, and it's getting smaller as we speak. You know, and we need help.
Other residents like John Weeder are trying hard to stay optimistic.
I spent Halloween dressed as a disaster victim. That was my costume, I guess.
His basement still has 3 feet of water.
Different flavors.
He picked up boxed meals and is in survival mode, the mentality of many resilient residents.
As long as we have the American flag flying, that means that we're in business. So we're here, you know, it gets very eerie here at night.
And as for Kim, she's certainly trying.
I know that we'll rebuild our home. It's just a little bit hard to see beyond the darkness of today, but we will.
Health officials issued a warning for Long Beach residents that the tap water is not safe for any use, even when boiled. There's a 7 p.m. curfew for the thousands of residents who are here, and they are advised to seek shelter elsewhere. We're in Long Beach. Jody Goldberg, FiOS 1 News.
And Ed Mangano specifically talking about Long Beach when we had him on the phone just minutes ago, and talking about that curfew that was put in place for residents' safety, also prevent looting, which at this point, according to the county executive, there have been no reports of. And I know when you have nothing, when everything has been taken away, everything that is left is so important that you don't want to lose anything anymore.
And it certainly increases those fears, and you know, fortunately, at least according to the county executive, it has not come to pass, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that it continues not to. We're going to take a quick break here on this special edition of RFL. Our coverage continues right after this.